Did you know that something as simple as reheating your leftovers could put you in the hospital? Here's something that might surprise you. Every year, foodborne pathogens cause up to 48 million illnesses, 128,000 hospitalizations, and 3,000 deaths in the United States alone. And if you're over 60, your risk is significantly higher. Nearly half of older adults who contract Salmonella, Campylobacter, Listeria, or E. coli require hospitalization. Think about that for a moment. Almost 1 out of every 2 seniors who get food poisoning ends up in the hospital. But here's the part that most people don't realize. The danger isn't just about eating spoiled food. It's about how you handle perfectly good food after it's been cooked, the way you store it, the way you reheat it, small decisions you make every single day. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly which 4 common foods can become dangerous when reheated, especially if you're over 60. You'll understand why this happens inside your body, and most importantly, you'll learn simple, practical steps to protect yourself and the people you love. This isn't about fear, it's about knowledge, and knowledge is what keeps you safe. Stay with me, because what I'm about to tell you could save you from a very unpleasant and potentially dangerous experience. My name is Dr. William Lee, and for over 2 decades, I've dedicated my career to studying preventive health, nutrition, healthy aging, and the science behind everyday medical decisions. My mission is simple: to help you understand what modern medical research really says so you can make informed decisions for yourself and the people you love. Let me start with something that's absolutely crucial to understand. If you're over 60, your body is different from what it was at 30 or 40. And I don't just mean the visible things, the gray hair, the wrinkles, the slower pace. I'm talking about changes you can't see. Beginning around age 60, your immune system begins to decline. This is a natural part of aging. Your body produces fewer immune cells. The ones you have don't work as efficiently. Your ability to fight off infections decreases. Think of your immune system like a fire department. When you're young, it's fully staffed with well-trained firefighters who can respond quickly to any emergency. As you get older, the department has fewer firefighters. They're slower to respond, and they're not quite as effective at putting out the fires. Now, here's why this matters for your food. When you eat something contaminated with harmful bacteria, your immune system is supposed to step in and protect you. But if your immune system is weakened by age, that protection isn't as strong. The bacteria can multiply more easily, the infection can spread more quickly, and the consequences can be much more serious. This isn't speculation. The data is very clear. According to the CDC, people aged 65 and older are at a significantly higher risk of serious complications from foodborne illness. Nearly half of older adults who get sick from common foodborne bacteria end up hospitalized. But here's what I want you to understand. The bacteria that cause food poisoning aren't always obvious. Spoiled food often smells bad or looks wrong, but food that's been contaminated by certain bacteria can look, smell, and taste perfectly fine. This is especially true with leftover foods that have been stored and reheated. You see, some bacteria produce toxins, poisons essentially, that are completely invisible. They don't change the appearance of your food. They don't create a bad smell. They don't alter the taste, but they can make you very, very sick. And here's the really frightening part. Some of these toxins are heat resistant. That means reheating your food, even to very high temperatures, won't destroy them. The poison is already there, and no amount of reheating will make it safe. In my experience, most people don't think about this. They assume that if they reheat their leftovers until they're hot, everything will be fine. And most of the time, that's true, but not always. There are 4 specific foods that present a particular risk when reheated, especially for people over 60. These are foods you probably eat regularly and foods you might have in your refrigerator right now. And the risks range from unpleasant digestive upset to something far more serious. In the next part, we're going to look at the first of these four foods. It's one of the most common side dishes in the world, and it's also one of the most dangerous when handled improperly. I want you to think about the last time you ordered takeout and saved the rice for later. Did you leave it on the counter while you finished your meal? Did you put it in the fridge while it was still warm? Your answer to those questions could mean the difference between a good meal and a very bad night. Let's talk about rice. It's one of the most widely consumed foods in the world. It's a staple of countless cuisines. It's affordable, filling, and versatile. And it's also one of the most common causes of food poisoning. Here's why. Rice naturally contains spores of a bacterium called Bacillus cereus. These spores are everywhere. They're found in soil, in dust, in our environment, and they're incredibly resilient. Think of a spore like a seed. It's dormant, it's inactive, it can survive cooking temperatures. Boiling rice doesn't kill these spores, it simply doesn't get hot enough. Now, here's where the problem begins. When rice is cooked, the heat activates the spores, they germinate, they wake up and start producing bacteria. This is normally fine if you eat the rice immediately. The bacteria haven't had time to multiply to dangerous levels, but if you leave cooked rice at room temperature for too long, those bacteria start multiplying rapidly. And as they multiply, they produce toxins. These toxins are what make you sick. And here's the critical part. The toxin that causes the vomiting type of illness is heat resistant. Reheating the rice won't destroy it. If the toxin is already there, it stays there. The symptoms of Bacillus cereus poisoning aren't pleasant. They include nausea, vomiting, abdominal cramps, and watery diarrhea. The vomiting type usually starts within 30 minutes to 5 hours after eating. The diarrheal type typically takes 8 to 16 hours. Most healthy people recover within a day, but for older adults, the risks are much higher. Dehydration from vomiting and diarrhea can be especially dangerous for seniors. And in severe cases, hospitalization may be required. Now, I want to be clear about something. The rice itself isn't the problem. The problem is how it's handled. If rice is left sitting outside for too long after cooking, it creates the perfect environment for bacteria to grow rapidly, especially in warm conditions. The danger isn't reheated rice itself. It's rice that was stored improperly before being reheated. So what should you do? First, don't leave cooked rice at room temperature for more than 2 hours. This is a critical rule. Bacteria multiply fastest between 5 degrees Celsius and 60 degrees Celsius, what food safety experts call the temperature danger zone. Second, cool cooked rice quickly. Don't put a large pot of hot rice directly into the refrigerator. It will warm up your fridge and may not cool evenly. Instead, spread the rice in a shallow container so it cools faster. Third, refrigerate the rice as soon as it stops steaming. Make sure your refrigerator is at 5 degrees Celsius or colder. Fourth, only keep cooked rice in the refrigerator for a short time. For vulnerable people, including older adults, it's best to eat leftover rice within 1 day. Fifth, when you do reheat rice, make sure it's steaming hot all the way through. Use a food thermometer to ensure it reaches at least 74 degrees Celsius, 165 degrees Fahrenheit. And finally, never reheat rice more than once. Each time you cool and reheat food, you create more opportunities for bacteria to grow. In my experience, most people don't realize how quickly rice can become dangerous. They leave it on the counter while they eat. They forget to put it away. They assume it will be fine, but for someone over 60, that assumption can have serious consequences. Now, rice isn't the only starchy food that can cause problems. There's another food that many people reheat regularly, a food that's a staple of Sunday dinners and holiday meals, and it carries a risk that's even more concerning. I'm talking about chicken. And what happens when you reheat it might surprise you. Let's talk about chicken. It's one of the most popular proteins in the world. It's versatile, relatively affordable, and generally considered healthy. But chicken also carries some unique risks when it comes to reheating. Here's the first thing you need to know. Chicken is particularly susceptible to bacterial contamination, especially from bacteria like Salmonella. Salmonella is commonly found in undercooked chicken. And if chicken isn't handled properly, those bacteria can multiply to dangerous levels. Now, when you cook chicken properly the first time, you kill the bacteria. The internal temperature needs to reach at least 75 degrees Celsius, 165 degrees Fahrenheit. But here's where the problem starts. If leftover chicken is stored improperly, any surviving bacteria can multiply. And if the chicken was kept at room temperature for too long after cooking, the risk increases significantly. But there's another issue with reheating chicken that many people don't consider. The protein in chicken changes its structure when it's reheated. This can make it harder to digest, especially for older adults whose digestive systems may already be less efficient. Here's what I want you to understand. The biggest risk with reheated chicken isn't a chemical change, it's bacterial growth. If chicken has been stored at room temperature for more than 2 hours, harmful bacteria can multiply to dangerous levels. And when you reheat it, you may not kill all of them. The FDA specifically warns that older adults should reheat poultry products until they're steaming hot. They recommend reheating deli meat and poultry products to 74 degrees Celsius, 165 degrees Fahrenheit. But even that may not be enough if the bacteria have already produced heat-resistant toxins. Some bacteria produce toxins that survive reheating, just like with rice. And for older adults, the consequences of eating contaminated chicken can be severe. Salmonella infection causes vomiting, diarrhea, abdominal pain, and fever, and symptoms are more severe in the elderly. So what can you do to protect yourself? First, always make sure chicken is cooked thoroughly the first time. Use a food thermometer to check that the internal temperature reaches at least 75 degrees Celsius, 165 degrees Fahrenheit. Second, refrigerate leftovers promptly within 2 hours of cooking or within 1 hour if the weather is warm. Third, when reheating chicken, make sure it reaches at least 165 degrees Fahrenheit, 74 degrees Celsius throughout. Use a kitchen thermometer ensuring that the food is steaming hot all the way through. Fourth, never reheat chicken more than once. You shouldn't reheat food more than once. Each time you reheat, bacteria can grow, making the food unsafe. But here's something else to consider. When you reheat chicken, you're also likely to lose some of its nutritional value. The proteins can become tough and dry. The texture changes. It's simply not as good for you. Now, I'm not saying you can never reheat chicken. I'm saying you need to be careful. You need to follow proper storage and reheating practices. And if you have any doubts about how the chicken was stored, it's better to throw it out. When in doubt, it's better to err on the side of caution and discard any food you're unsure about. This is something I often explain to my patients. The cost of throwing away a few dollars worth of food is nothing compared to the cost of a hospital visit. So we've talked about rice and chicken, two common foods that can become dangerous when reheated, but there's another food, a vegetable that many people consider one of the healthiest foods in the world that carries a completely different type of risk. It's not about bacteria, it's about chemistry. And the chemical change that happens when you reheat this vegetable could be concerning, especially for older adults. Let's talk about spinach. It's one of the most nutritious vegetables you can eat. It's packed with vitamins A, C, and K. It's rich in iron. It's low in calories. For decades, we've been told to eat more spinach. And that advice is absolutely correct when you eat it fresh. But here's the problem. Spinach contains something else besides vitamins and minerals. It contains nitrates. Nitrates are natural compounds found in many vegetables. In fact, leafy greens are particularly high in nitrates. And normally, this isn't a problem. In fact, nitrates can actually be beneficial for your health. But when spinach is cooked and then reheated, something concerning can happen. The nitrates can convert into nitrites. And nitrites are a different story. Here's why this matters. Nitrites can react with compounds in your body to form nitrosamines. And nitrosamines are considered potentially carcinogenic. They're substances that may increase cancer risk. Now, I want to be very clear about something. The amounts of nitrosamines that form from reheated spinach are generally small, but the concern is about repeated exposure over time. For older adults, this may be particularly relevant. As we age, our bodies become less efficient at processing certain compounds. And the cumulative effect of repeatedly consuming reheated nitrate-rich vegetables could be a concern. The scientific evidence on this is mixed. Some sources suggest the risk is minimal if the spinach is properly stored and only reheated once. Others recommend that elderly people avoid reheated spinach altogether. In my view, the precautionary approach makes sense. Why take the risk when the solution is so simple? Spinach and beets are best consumed fresh and not reheated. They're delicious cold in salads. They can be added to sandwiches. They can be eaten as a side dish without reheating. If you do decide to reheat spinach, here are some guidelines. First, only reheat it once. Nitrite can be harmful to health, especially if spinach is reheated repeatedly. Second, cool and store it quickly. If you chill the spinach quickly and store it in the fridge, you can stop this process and reheat the spinach the following day without a worry. Third, heat it quickly and evenly to at least 70 degrees Celsius. But honestly, I think the best approach is simply to eat spinach fresh. Add it to salads. Use it in smoothies. Enjoy it as a fresh side dish. Save yourself the concern and enjoy this nutritious vegetable at its best. This is something I often discuss with my patients who love spinach but are worried about the risks. The good news is that there are plenty of ways to enjoy spinach without reheating it. So we've covered 3 foods: rice, chicken, and spinach. 3 very different foods with 3 very different risks. But there's one more food that deserves special attention. It's a food that many people eat regularly, especially on cold days. And the risk with this food is perhaps the most serious of all. I'm talking about potatoes. And what happens when you leave them at room temperature could be deadly. Let's talk about potatoes. They're comfort food. They're filling. They're affordable. Mashed potatoes, baked potatoes, roasted potatoes. They're staples of countless meals, especially for older adults who appreciate simple, familiar foods. But potatoes carry a risk that most people have never heard of, and it's a risk that could be fatal. The problem with potatoes isn't the reheating itself. The problem with reheated potatoes is not the reheating process, but how you store the potatoes after they are cooked. Here's what happens. Potatoes, especially when they're cooked and left at room temperature, can become a breeding ground for a very dangerous bacterium called Clostridium botulinum. You've probably heard of botulism. It's a rare but serious illness caused by the toxin produced by Clostridium botulinum, and it can be deadly. The bacterium causes botulism, a disease that affects the nervous system, causing muscle weakness and even paralysis. This is not just a theoretical risk. This is now we're saying, this is why we're saying, Ashley for Harris Hetmanini may see mistake in a few cases. People have gotten seriously ill from eating reheated potatoes that were stored improperly. Here's why potatoes are particularly risky. Clostridium botulinum grows in environments without oxygen. If you wrap a baked potato in foil and leave it at room temperature, you're creating the perfect conditions for this bacterium to grow. The foil seals out oxygen. The room temperature provides warmth. The potato provides food. And here's the really frightening part. The bacteria aren't killed by the heat. They will actually multiply because of it. Actually, to be precise, the bacteria themselves may be killed by high heat, but the toxin they produce is heat stable. Reheating won't destroy it. The symptoms of botulism include difficulty swallowing, muscle weakness, vision problems, and difficulty breathing. In severe cases, it can cause paralysis and death. And this is why potatoes are perhaps the most dangerous food on our list. So what should you do? First, never leave cooked potatoes at room temperature for more than 2 hours. Second, don't store baked potatoes wrapped in foil at room temperature. If you're not going to eat them immediately, remove the foil and refrigerate them promptly. Third, refrigerate leftover potatoes within 2 hours of cooking. Storage at room temperature for even a few hours can lead to the development of the dangerous bacterium Clostridium botulinum. Fourth, when reheating potatoes, make sure they're heated thoroughly. Use a food thermometer to ensure they reach at least 74 degrees Celsius, 165 degrees Fahrenheit. Fifth, if you have any doubt about how potatoes were stored, throw them out. The risk isn't worth it. In my experience, most people have no idea about this risk. They bake potatoes, wrap them in foil, and leave them on the counter. They reheat them the next day and think nothing of it. But for someone over 60, this seemingly harmless habit could be dangerous. Now, let me give you some general guidelines that apply to all leftovers, regardless of what food you're reheating. First, always reheat food to at least 74 degrees Celsius, 165 degrees Fahrenheit. Use a food thermometer. Don't guess. Second, bring sauces, soups, and gravies to a rolling boil when reheating. Third, when using a microwave, cover the food and stir it halfway through. This ensures even heating and eliminates cold spots where bacteria can survive. Fourth, never reheat food more than once. Fifth, refrigerate leftovers within 2 hours of cooking or within 1 hour if the temperature is above 32 degrees Celsius, 90 degrees Fahrenheit. And finally, remember the 3 to 4 day rule. The U.S. Department of Agriculture, USDA, says that leftovers can be kept in the fridge for 3 to 4 days. After that, it's time to throw them out. One more thing. I want to address a question I often get from my patients. Can I reheat food that's been frozen? Yes, but you need to be careful. Thaw frozen food in the refrigerator, not on the counter. And once it's thawed, treat it like any other leftover. Reheat it thoroughly, and don't reheat it more than once. Here's what I want you to remember from today's discussion. Your age matters when it comes to food safety. Your immune system isn't what it used to be. And that means you need to be more careful about how you handle food, especially leftovers. The 4 foods we've discussed today, rice, chicken, spinach, and potatoes, all carry unique risks when reheated improperly. Rice can harbor Bacillus cereus, which produces a heat-resistant toxin. Proper storage and prompt refrigeration are essential. Chicken can harbor salmonella and other bacteria. Thorough reheating to 74 degrees Celsius, 165 degrees Fahrenheit, is crucial. Spinach contains nitrates that can convert to nitrites and potentially nitrosamines when reheated. It's best consumed fresh. Potatoes can harbor Clostridium botulinum if stored improperly at room temperature. Refrigerate them promptly and never leave them wrapped in foil at room temperature. But here's the good news. These risks are entirely preventable. By following simple food safety practices, proper storage, prompt refrigeration, thorough reheating, you can enjoy your leftovers safely. And that's really the message I want to leave you with. You don't have to live in fear of your food. You just need to understand the risks and take sensible precautions. And if I could give you just one piece of advice, it would be this. When in doubt, throw it out. The cost of replacing a meal is small. The cost of a hospital visit is not. Take care of yourself. Pay attention to how you handle your food. And if you have any concerns, don't hesitate to speak with your healthcare provider. You've earned the right to enjoy your golden years in good health. Don't let a simple mistake with leftovers take that away from you. Thank you for watching. I hope this information helps you make better decisions about your food and your health.